Good morning, Deputy Judge President.
Good morning, Chief Justice.
How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Thank you. I see you have no interest in knowing how I am.
I was about to ask.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, but I can see that you are well, Chief Justice, I can see.
Before we start, let me just welcome the Judge President of the Northwest Division of the High Court, Justice Liu. She has joined us as she is required to. Welcome, JP.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning to you.
Thank you. May I take this opportunity to do something that I should have done yesterday morning? Advocate Mpofu SC and Advocate Madonsela SC, who have been members of the JSC, are no longer members of the JSC. And I take this opportunity on behalf of all the commissioners to thank them for their service to the Commission and their service to the nation. I thought I must just place on record that we thank them for their service. They have been replaced by Advocate Baloi SC and Advocate Pillay SC, both of whom we welcome. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's start. DJP, I see that in terms of your qualifications, you obtained a BLC degree in 1988 from the University, is it University of Pretoria?
University of Pretoria, that's correct, Chief Justice.
Yes, and in 1990, you then obtained your LLB from the same university.
That is indeed correct, Chief Justice.
Yes, and after that, you worked as a regional court prosecutor in 1990. And in 1991, up to 1993, you worked as a state advocate, is that right?
That's correct.
And then you did your pupillage in 1993 from February to July, is that right?
That is correct, Chief Justice.
And you started practicing as an advocate in July 1993, and you continued practicing as an advocate for 10 years up to April 2003.
That is also correct, Chief Justice.
Yes. After which you had about 2 terms of acting stints as a judge, and you were appointed as a judge with effect from the 1st of November 2003.
That is indeed correct, Chief Justice.
And that is in the same division where you are.
Yes, Chief Justice.
Yes. And you acted as judge president. I see here it says 1 June 2012 to 30 June 2012, so that was a month.
That was for 1 month.
Yes.
By then in our division, we did not have the post of a deputy judge president.
Yes. And then again in 2014, this time it was for a longer period, from 1 August 2014 to the 31st of December 2014.
That is indeed correct, Chief Justice.
And then also you acted as judge president from 25 July 2016 to 26 August 2016, and from 1 June 2017 to 29 September 2017, and from 18 April 2018 to 30 June 2018, and from 4 March 2019 to 14 April 2019. And you were appointed as Deputy Judge President with effect from 1 December 2019, and you continue to occupy that position. Is all of this correct?
That's correct. Only for one correction, I was acting Deputy Judge President for the period 1 June 2017 to 29 September 2017, and 18 April 2018 to 30 April 2018. Not acting Judge President, but acting Deputy Judge President.
Yes, no, thank you for that correction.
Yes, Chief Justice.
Thank you. So you have been a judge now for what, 18 years?
18 years.
Yes, in the same division.
Yes, yes, Chief Justice.
Yes. And you have been Deputy Judge President for about, what, 3 years, 2 years?
For 2 years and 4 months, permanently appointed. But there was also the 2 periods that I acted as Deputy Judge President for 5 months.
Yes. Okay. And the division, Northwest Division, how is the mix of cases that it deals with, generally speaking, in terms of different branches, how much commercial law, more or less, there is, how much of other types of law do judges who are in that division get exposed to?
Yeah, because we are a small division, we do the whole range of cases that comes before court. There is no specialization. We do criminal as well as civil. There's motion, unopposed, as well as opposed motion, road accident fund cases, and civil trials.
And does the division have quite a lot of motion court?
Yes. With the increase in the jurisdiction of the division, with the adding of the other areas that were previously excluded, the workload increased. On average, the motion court roll per week is in the vicinity of ranging between 60 and 70.
Yes.
There were cases that it even exceeded and went over 100 for that specific week.
And at the moment, how many judges does the division have? Permanent judges?
With the creation of the post of Deputy Judge President, we are a complement of 7 judges.
Yes.
There are now 6 permanent judges and there's 1 vacancy.
Yes. And in terms of the responsibilities of a judge president outside of his or her division, are you familiar with those responsibilities insofar as they may relate to the rest of the judiciary in the province?
Chief Justice, the Judge President is not only the Judge President of the High Court, but the head of the judiciary of the province. As such, even the lower courts, that is the regional and district courts in the province, resort under the authority of the Judge President.
Yes, and what does that authority entail?
The Judge President must oversee and monitor the performance of the lower courts, for example, and if there's any challenges, even attend to that, because as head of the judiciary, Any challenges may well be addressed to the Judge President. There is what we have in our province, and I think in other provinces as well, the PEEC, the Provincial Efficiency Enhancement Committee, where all role players come together in an attempt to resolve any challenges that may be experienced, especially even in lower courts. There may be challenges with regard to infrastructure and performance. There is, for the magistracy, there is a chief magistrate who is the head of the magistracy. For the regional court, there is a president for the regional court, but the judge president is the overall person responsible for the judiciary in the province.
The PEEC in Northwest, how is it functioning? Is it functioning well? How regularly does it have meetings?
Yes, it is functional. There was a period when during, was it a strict lockdown, that we did not meet, but after that, on 2 occasions now already, in December, that was the 4th of December, and the 3rd of December and the 4th of March, respectively, the PEEC met. I chaired that meeting, and I was deputized by the Judge President to be chairing the PEEC meetings.
The JP asked you to chair that meeting?
Yes, that's correct, Chief Justice.
Okay, all right. Now, the magistrates' courts and regional courts that are there in Northwest, that as Judge President, if you were appointed, you would oversee, how many magistrates' courts are there? How big is the job? How big is the judiciary in the province, more or less?
I don't have the specific number of magistrate courts and regional courts, but it's throughout the province, and the province is well accessible. These courts are well accessible throughout the province. I don't have the specific number, unfortunately not.
Yes. Apart from the PEEC, that I take it you would continue to lead in the province relating to the performance of all the courts in the province, do you have any plans also of interacting with the various leaders of the district courts and the regional court to see what's going on in those courts? Do you have any plans, or will you be relying on reports that will be made to the PEEC?
No, I can't solely rely on reports being made to the PEEC, Chief Justice. I will endeavor to at least once a term visit these courts in order to establish firsthand what is going on. You can't just rely on statistics. You have to go and visit and see what is actually happening in these courts. So I intend to do the visits, but I have also a very good working relationship with the Chief Magistrate, Ms. Ikaneng. There is now an acting regional court president, Ms. Winnie Malani. I have also a good working relationship with her. And if there are challenges, I can be contacted, and I can contact them.
Now, what are the current challenges in the division that you have identified, and what are the potential challenges that might arise in the future that will need to be tackled by by yourself if you are appointed as judge president in the division?
Chief Justice, in the High Court itself, we encounter a problem with space for filing. The records office have too many files, and a plan needed to be devised, what to do with these files and how to store them. I engaged with the chief registrar, and he wrote a letter to the provincial archives, which is diagonally back opposite the High Court, for the storage of some of these old files. And one may ask, why are we keeping these files for so long? But some of the people, maybe they're convicted in criminal cases, may apply for leave to appeal after a considerable period of time. And then you still need the files. So that is in process. But in the interim, at the back of each courtroom, there is a consulting room, which can be under lock and key. What I asked the chief registrar and the court manager to do is that some of the files be stored there in order to create space in the records office where the clerks are working, because there are too many files. If we go on with modernization of the system and go to case line management, surely it will enhance, it will help with the problem that is currently facing, that we are currently facing in the High Court. There are also other structural problems like the air cons, water, and there is a problem with the generator at present. The generator is not working. I've asked the court manager what the problem is. They are waiting for a part from Germany. We have now in the last PEEC meeting discussed it, and it was decided that Public Works should look into it to replace the generator rather than wait for a part from Germany, and which may in any event be a costly exercise. So that is an ongoing process. It's on the log sheet of the PEEC, and I will get feedback with regard to that in due course.
And does the division have any challenges in terms of backlog of cases?
In terms of the norms and standards, if one strictly goes according to the time period set out, there are cases that are backdating to 2015, 2016, although they are not a lot. But these cases are given preference. When I do the pre-trial and come across a case such as that, I judicial case manage that case in order to get it ready, trial ready, as soon as possible. Now, what I plan to do in the future is, currently we have a system where myself are doing the pre-trials on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And in future, I want the 5 permanent judges to each one do not only pre-trials but case manage. And when a case is allocated to a judge, that judge is seized with that case. It must be on his separate role, if I may call it a separate role, so that he can case manage that case in order to get it trial ready. And only when it is certified trial ready, then it will come back on the mainstream, if I may call it that, back to the office of the judge president, where a date will be allocated. The judge that are seized with a matter, that are judicial case managing that matter, must also indicate how long will that matter take to be case ready, and that it must be constantly monitored. Furthermore, in the certificate, it must indicate how many dates or days should be allocated for the hearing of such a matter.
Now, cases that might have been pending since 2015, which is about, what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, are you going to make sure that those are all identified and something is done to make sure that they are finalized without delay?
Yes, those cases are prioritized, Chief Justice. I prioritize them. Allocate dates for hearing as soon as possible. I even do it in conjunction with the Judge President.
Do you know how it came about that they have been pending for so long? Is it because lawyers were not taking the steps necessary to ripen the cases, or why? Or why did they take so long?
Sorry, Chief Justice, yes. There are very different contributory factors. But the lawyers are, to a large extent, to blame. Because if you take, for example, the road accident fund matters, usually the reports are outstanding. That is the expert reports. And it takes time to get those reports. In some matters, the plaintiff will definitely comply, whereas the road accident fund will have a problem to appoint experts. Now, these cause the delays in the matter, in finalizing the matter, or even getting the matter trial ready.
Thank you, DJP. I'm now going to allow the Judge President to put questions to you. I think in terms of what has happened, or what happened in October, my impression is that the Judge President would be given more time to put questions to the witness, because obviously the Judge President knows a lot about the division. That's my recollection. I don't know whether anybody thinks differently. I think there is nodding. So, Judge President, let me give you the opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Chief Justice. Most of the questions have been covered by you as you interacting with DJP Hendricks. Good morning.
Good morning, Chief Judge President.
I'll get it difficult to call you DJP because I call you Ron all the time.
Yes.
Thank you. Already the Chief Justice has touched on your knowledge about our division.
Yes.
And it is correct that you have been, for almost maybe the past 3-4 PEEC meetings.
Yes.
I requested you to go and sit. Initially, I was sitting with you at the PEEC, so you had to take over now.
That's correct.
Yes. Now, what are the challenges, main challenges that you identified with the, let me not talk much about the High Court itself, about some of the magistrates' courts in the province, especially if you look at areas like Garankuwa and maybe even Klerksdorp.
Yeah. Thank you, JP. JP, the most recent problem experienced, for example, in Rustenburg was infrastructural. There was a period when the contractor was appointed to remove the asbestos. Now, again, there was, the contractor did not do a proper job, if I may call it that. Then there was a health hazard, and the court was closed. Thereafter, the department approached the High Court to reopen. I could not, because this matter served before me. I was aware of it. It was in the PEC meeting. I then gave it to a colleague of mine to oversee. Now, the court was closed, but it was now, certain portions thereof was reopened. Now, there are structural problems that are experienced. In courts like Rustenburg, the same applies to Garankuwa. Garankuwa has a problem with accommodation. There is not enough office space for the people to work in Garankuwa. There are also other problems like in Tlabani. There's a water problem from time to time. In Klerksdorp, I'm speaking under correction, but there is a process underway with the Department of Public Works to see to it whether they can renovate the building in Klerksdorp. There was talk in the past about alternative accommodation. Like in Rustenburg, for instance, there was talk about an old justice building that is now occupied by the police. But up to now, it hasn't materialized. So most of the challenges, if I may call it that, are structural and to accommodate the staff.
Yes, if I may follow up on that, how are you going to address this problem which I couldn't address in my time related to our dependence on the Department of Public Works to do things for us? For instance, you remember for 3 days in the High Court, we did not have lights because they had not paid the account.
Oh.
So how do you hope to succeed in that field?
Judge President, the positive thing is that the latest PEEC meeting was attended by representatives from Public Works. Now, in the past, that was a challenge, as you know. Sometimes they would not attend. So these problems could not be addressed or properly addressed. I intend, and that is my plan, to not only deal with it in the PEEC, but to escalate our challenges through the correct channels to the higher authorities in order for them to comply with what they are required to do, even if one needs to write to the minister about it.
Last question will be, with the increase in the jurisdiction of the Northwest High Court, but with the number of judges not being increased, and with the policy that we have adopted of every judge doing, in other words, in a week, a judge would be doing motion court, a judge would be doing civil matters, even a criminal matter. In other words, we all share our work. Do you find that system preferable or workable?
Judge President, as you know, that it is very challenging because the workload is indeed at times overwhelming. It's not preferable that it work that way. It would be ideal if more judges can be appointed, seeing that the jurisdiction has increased. As you are well aware, pardon, ever since the dawn of our democracy, pardon, we have been 6 judges, a complement of 6 judges, from the old Bophuthatswana era. That is not, the number of judges hasn't increased, but the area of jurisdiction has increased now to include the whole province. So it is not ideal that we work on the system as we currently do. If we can have more posts, more appointments, it will indeed help and alleviate the problem. But I must say that, you know, I admire the way that you keep the balls in the air, proverbially speaking, by rotating the judges. If there is but one good thing that came out of this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, it is the fact that we can do cases virtually. So if a judge is going on circuit, and it happened that the judge went on circuit to do criminal work, that judge don't only do criminal work, but if need be, that judge can, through virtual connection, also sit in opposed motions or appeals and reviews or admissions on Friday, and doesn't have to travel back all the way to come and sit in the main seat. What I plan to do is, with a place like Klerksdorp, in Klerksdorp, the workload has increased. With Klerksdorp being added, the workload has increased. Now, for the past few years, as you know, in Mokwasi, we have a motion court every second week on a Friday. That enhances access to justice. I intend to do the same in Klerksdorp. The judge going on circuit, it's not only going to do the criminal work, but also the unopposed motions every second Friday. The same can also apply to Vryburg, which is far-flung areas and far away from the main seat in Mabatu. So, yeah, that is my plans for the future.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, JP.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, JP. I will now allow members of the commission who wish to put questions to the candidates to do so. We continue to bear in mind the criteria, but we also need to acknowledge that the position is that of leadership. So I will now allow commissioners who, I'm sorry?
The Premier, Chief Justice.
Yes, I'm going to come to him, yeah.
CJ?
So, oh, I'm sorry, oh, the
The
Premier.
Premier first, yes.
Yes, no, I'm sorry. Premier, I momentarily forgot about you. Premier, you are still there?
Thank you very much, Chief Justice, and good morning.
Yes.
I have one question I want to put to Judge Hendricks.
Yes.
One is in the Northwest, how is he going to ensure that he nurtures and prepare for promotion, designated groups? Thank you.
Good morning, Premier, and thank you for the question. Premier, for the past 3 years or more, of the 15 candidates, the 15 acting judges that were invited, 8 of them were women. And I intend to build on this pool of women, in particular black women, being given an opportunity to act and to be exposed to and maybe take up later appointment. I've been involved in mentoring acting judges for the past 17 years, most of them women. Some of them are even permanently appointed. So I intend to build onto and expand the calling of women, because in terms of the criteria and the guidelines, not only the racial component but also the gender need to be promoted. So I intend to call more black women to come and act.
I know, Premier, you said you had one question.
Yeah,
Is
thank you,
that
Chief
it?
Justice.
Or?
Yeah, that's it, Chief Justice. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Minister?
Yeah, thank you very much, CJ, and good morning, Deputy Judge President.
Good morning, Mr. Minister.
Yeah, my question relates to what is your leadership philosophy?
Yeah. I have taken an oath of office to dispense justice without fear, favor, or prejudice. There's a constitution, we are in a constitutional democracy that guides us. There's also the Superior Court Act, and there are the norms and standards. My philosophy is to dispense justice without fear, favor, or prejudice.
And what will be your view on controversial and sometimes high-profile matters that will obviously come before the division? As the leader of the division, will you lead from the front, or you will just leave them to whoever is available on the roll?
Certainly not, Mr. Minister. In the past already, there were controversial or very important matters that came before court. I was assigned to do it, and as a team player, I will definitely play my part and also take on these very controversial and very complex matters.
Yeah, and last one is with regards to the point you responded to the Chief Justice on modernization.
Yes.
And case line, where you said that if case line could come, it could really help. So I want to know what then will be your role to ensure that you do at some point implement this case line and also modernize the platforms that you use to enable you to administer or dispense justice effectively. And what has been your role all along to bring this case line to the PA? Because if my memory serves me well, the pilot project that was in Gauteng was also supposed to be in the Northwest. So what has been your role in this modernization project?
Thank you, Mr. Minister. The pilot project was supposed to be rolled out also in the Northwest. The help desk, if you can remember, during my interview for the position of DJP, I was asked specifically this question. The help desk has been set up there, and it was supposed to be rolled out, but it never came, to fruition. I intend to implement it, to get it from the ground. What happened is not only myself, but all the other judges attended the case line program that was offered in Gauteng. So I intend to implement it and to have it up and running. But there are certain challenges. We need the infrastructure. We need to have the computers. We need to put up what is necessary in order for the program to run. So perhaps with assistance from the Office of the OCJ, the IT department, it can be implemented.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Minister. Commissioner Nyambi.
Thank you, CJ. Morning, DJP Hendricks.
Good morning.
I'm on your right.
On the right.
Right close to you.
Sorry. Good morning, Commissioner. And how are you?
No, I'm fine.
Thank you.
I remember you for your involvement in the groundbreaking finalization of the case involving the murder of Francis Rasool.
Yes.
we're still experiencing that problem. That's the unfortunate part as a country today, the killing of beautiful women and children. How will you describe the experience of having been involved in such a high-profile case and its relevance to the administration of justice?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, gender-based violence is a reality and something that we are faced with and need to deal with decisively through the criminal justice system. Yeah, my personal experience, if that is the question with regard to the case, it was, and I still regard it as a groundbreaking case. It was different from your ordinary, if I may call a murder case ordinary, but was not a straightforward case. This was the first case of its kind where a person, the policewoman, was murdered and the remains could not be found. And fortunately, but years afterwards, the remains were discovered. So yes, the feeling was I contributed to the jurisprudence, especially as far as that is concerned, because it was one of its kind where a conviction was based on circumstantial evidence alone. And there is no word what happened to the deceased at a time when the trial was still running.
Thank you. My last question. The GCP knows that during your acting stint as a judge president, you were able to reduce the lifespan of cases on the roll through innovative measures. If you can share with us how you were able to do that.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. In 2014, there was a backlog with regard to appeal matters. Now, we were a complement of 6 judges. I constituted every Friday 3 appeal courts of 2 judges each. And if it's a full court, as it is now called, of 3 judges, then I constitute 2. And I increase the number of appeals so that it could be finalized more expeditiously. That can be taken as a yardstick, as a measure, how to deal with cases and to deal effectively with them in order to finalize them as expeditiously as possible. It is unfortunate that I have to refer back to one of the previous letters of support by one of the acting judges then, Matlapeng. He specifically wrote and said that it is then that he observed the traits of me being a true leader because of the working down of the backlog. We worked very hard because we are a small division, but we worked very smart in order to achieve our goal.
Thank you, DJP Hendricks. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner. Justice Betzer.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Deputy Judge President Hendricks.
Good morning.
I only have 2 questions for you. The one relates to the nature of the work that judges in your divisions do. Do you also have any company-related cases, such as liquidations and business rescue cases?
Yes. Is it Deputy President?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Deputy President. We do have liquidations and sequestrations on a weekly basis. Some are unopposed, some are opposed. So we do have commercial matters, yes.
Thank you. Then the second question relates to, case management, which would be one of your focal points if you were to be appointed as judge president. You did say earlier on that you have devised a system whereby you allocate cases to each judge for case management to ripen them for trial and eventually disposal. As the head of the court, would you accept that you would then bear the final responsibility to see to it that things go the way they should?
Yes.
That is, you would monitor the progress of the cases that you allocate to your colleagues for case management.
Yes, yes, definitely. If I may just repeat myself and make myself a bit clearer. Over and above the allocation of these matters to each and every judge for not only pre-trial but case manage it and get it trial ready, it comes back into what I call the mainstream, back to me, back to the office of the judge president, in order for it to be allocated a date for trial and to manage it. Yes, it is at the final analysis. At the final instance, it is my responsibility to ensure, as judge president, that cases run smoothly in the division.
Thank you, Deputy Judge President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Deputy President.
Thank you, Commissioner Makwanishe.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good morning, DJP Hendricks.
Good morning, Commissioner.
There is this challenge of prisons that are overcrowded.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is that people who cannot afford a bail of 1,000 rands and less. And we do think that the judiciary has a role to play. What do you think would be the role that you would play as the judge president if appointed?
Thank you, Commissioner. One needs to look into why the accused person can't afford bail and whether such a person cannot be released either on warning in order to alleviate the overcrowding of the prisons, especially for your minor crimes, your not so serious crimes. The magistrate can look into it. That is an issue that can be taken up with the magistracy.
Will you have a program around it?
Yes, it can be one of the items that can be addressed with the magistracy, because I'm also invited from time to time to what is called a district efficiency enhancement committee as well as the regional efficiency enhancement committee. These are the committees of the district and regional courts dealing with challenges. And that can be one of the items that can be addressed in that specific forum.
You said in your response to the Chief Justice that since 1994 or even before 1994, you only had 6 judges in your division.
Yes.
And the workload has increased considerably since then.
That's correct.
And I would suspect that part of the challenge would be the wellness of judges, because
yes.
if they are working under tremendous stress.
Yes.
What is your vision around it? How are you going to ensure that the wellness of your judges is taken into consideration?
I know from the past that through the Office of the Chief Justice, and I think Judge President Musi was tasked with it, with a wellness program for judges. And I would conscientize the judges about this program. And because we are so few, we see each other on a daily basis. And if a judge is not well, that judge will definitely inform me what is his or her condition, and something can be done about it. One can work around a workload even to be allocated. It happened in the past when judges were not well, that we work something out around to get around a problem.
Two quick last questions, Chief Justice. As a DJP or as a judge, have you ever visited any of the prisons in your division?
Yes, I visited the Rooigrond prison. There's also a prison in Mafikeng.
Are you going to encourage other colleagues, even the magistrates, to do the same?
There was a system in place years ago where judges would go on, that goes on circuit, would visit the prisons in the area. For instance, in Rustenburg. If you have a circuit in Rustenburg, Mokwasi, then you visit Mokwasi prison. But somehow that has died down. But that can be revoked and be re-implemented in order to visit. I know there is a judge appointed as a judge of inspector of prisons that goes around prisons and so on. But we can assist in that regard if there are challenges to bring it to that judge's attention and also to the minister if need be.
The last question, do you have any outstanding judgments?
No. Outstanding judgments that was reserved when I have filled in the application, that is the 29. Those two has been handed down. But yes, there is one matter, which is a very involved matter, consisting of over 4,000 pages. It has to do with expropriation. That judgment was reserved and heads of argument had been forwarded. That is the only outstanding reserved judgment that I have and that I'm busy with.
Thank you very much, Judge Hendricks. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dodovu.
Thank you very much, CJ. Good morning, Justice Hendricks.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Just few questions. The first one relating to the objection against your appointment.
Yes.
It will seem that this objector has objected all along throughout when you applied to the JSC.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Yes. These allegations that he's putting forward here, are they the same allegations that he put in the past? If not, if they are new, can you respond to them, please?
Yeah. They are not what the previous objections was. If you can remember, during my interview in 2019, it had everything to do with a meeting that was held by the judge president in my absence with his former principal about his conduct. And that was what was the gist of the complaint at that stage. Now it has changed. You have, I'm sure that you have read through what his complaints are. In the main, he complains that there's a matter that was on the unopposed row. And because, pardon me, because there was a notice of intention to oppose. Pardon me, there's something wrong with my throat.
Take it easy.
Yeah, because there was a notice of intention to oppose, I postponed the matter to allow the other side the opportunity to file an answering affidavit as well as the applicant to file a replying affidavit and heads of argument. That is the normal course of how it happened when a matter becomes opposed. Now he complains that I was deliberately postponing this matter when it was trial ready. When in that matter, it was done virtually. The counsel who appeared, Leshilo, he did not file what we have in our division, a practice note, so that the virtual link could be sent out. Now, if you look at the order that was granted, there's no prejudice whatsoever that was suffered. The matter was postponed to the opposed row, and there was no adverse cost order made.
Okay, thank you. The next question, you applied for a leadership position as the head of the Judiciary in the Northwest.
Yes.
Let me tell you what people think about the Judiciary, especially the high courts. That matters get delayed, the quality of judgments are not okay. You sometimes judges use combative language when in their judgments, and the problems that you mentioned about infrastructure and modernization of the courts. What could be your specific contribution in helping to resolve some of these challenges?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, if you look at the nomination letter, the nomination by my fellow judges, they defer to the managerial skills as well as the leadership qualities. And they specifically mentioned not only that I mentor the acting judges, but when they write judgments, they come to me for guidance as a senior judge. And I invariably supply them with advice on how to go about without imposing my view on it. The independence of the judge needs to be respected. But when it comes to maybe the tone of the language that are used, one can, as the judge president, point out to the acting judge or judge that this is not how we write judgments, and that is where the mentoring came in. That is what I've been doing for so many years now.
Thank you. Just the last one, CJ. Northwest is a traditionally entrenched province where traditional leadership is very, very strong. And I'm aware that there are a lot of cases pertaining to the disputes around the traditional leadership. How can you enhance your court in terms of its capacity to deal with such cases?
First of all, to have, and now I'm going to say something a bit controversial, to have competent judges to deal with these matters and understand them. You must have some knowledge about it and some exposure to it in order to deal with it. Going back a bit, I mentioned specifically that I intend to have a pool of women judges, but mostly black women judges. And if they can understand the tradition and how these courts function and work, and it will definitely enhance.
All right, thank you very much, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Singh.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice, and good morning, Judge Hendricks.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner.
Just as a follow-up to Commissioner Dodovu, you spoke about tone and language, and I can remember in one of the interviews, you said that one of your potential weaknesses could be lack of patience. You said it yourself.
Yeah.
How has that developed now over the last 5 years?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. You are absolutely right. Once again, one have to look at not only what you say about yourself, but what other people say about you. And if you look at the GCB, the General Council of the Bars, their comment, and they even address the fact that I may well be firm, but I have the necessary respect and patience, and I have developed and improved the patience over these years.
No, thank you for that. Then on the question of traditional leadership, there have been comments in the past by certain academics who write about land matters and traditional leadership, that perhaps, and I'm not using the exact words, that you are a bit soft on traditional leadership when it comes to adjudicating matters where they are involved in, against communities who have rights. I think you remember those articles written in the past?
Yes.
Yeah. What can you say to that aspect?
No. To be quite honest, Commissioner, I with regard to the articles itself, I said it categorically because there were some innuendos, if you can remember correctly. I said it categorically, there is no innuendos to be drawn. And it specifically relate to a specific tribe and specific persons involved. And I vehemently disagreed with that.
And you still disagree?
I still disagree.
Okay, thank you. Then the last question is on judgments, reserved judgments, and I note that the two that you listed here have been delivered.
Yes.
But one relates to medical negligence.
Yes.
What are the incidences of medical negligence cases that come before your courts there? And what is your view, and I think the Minister and the President recently had a conference about this. What is your view about these trials that go on and on and on, and after years and lots of money, which costs the state and the litigants, then the matter is settled out of court? What advice can you offer on cases of medical negligence? Because I think one of the biggest contingent liabilities that the state has is medical negligence cases, like land claims cases and probably RAF cases. So what advice and views can you offer in that regard?
All depends on the expert reports and joint minutes that are filed by the experts. Perhaps in the joint minutes, if the issues are so narrow, the settlement may well come at a much earlier state, which will be much more cost effective at the end of the day. So that is one of the aspects to be looked into. Rather than to drag out this case and let it run for a considerable period of time, and at the end of the day, it is settled in any event. The basis for settling these medical negligence cases is based on what is the evidence, the expert evidence that are before court. And if there are joint minutes by the experts on certain of these aspects, surely that the settlement should be looked into much earlier.
This just to follow up, this particular case that was cited here as reserved judgment, would you have any idea of how long it took for the matter from the time it started until judgment was delivered?
The period that it was reserved?
No, we see the period it was reserved for, but from the time the matters came before court until a final judgment.
I'm speaking under correction, but it lasted more than 3 years.
Yeah, see, that's my point, Chief Justice, that these medical negligence cases just drag on and on at great cost to South African taxpayers and to the state. And I think the initiative by the Minister and the President to look at these matters of how you deal with medical negligence was a wise one. But thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Commissioner Matolo Lebu.
Thank you, Chief Justice, and good morning, DJP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Mine is just an inquiry.
Yes.
The issue of Rustenburg Court.
Yes.
a lot of practitioners actually complain to the LPC about the issue of access to justice for ordinary men in the street. If the Rustenburg court is closed,
Yes.
what I want to know from you is how do you intend preventing such a thing or making the public aware if such an incident happens? Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Commissioner, what happened in the Rustenburg, with the Rustenburg court is, after its closure, there was notification sent out. There was, the public was notified that the court is closed. It wasn't closed for a very long time, though, but it was at a great inconvenience to the public. There were attempts made for alternatives, either at the Rustenburg Traffic Court or at Labani Court or even the Civic Center that was also proposed. Now, these are structural problems. And fortunately, we could work around it so that the court could be reopened, although certain portions thereof were closed to the public for safety reasons. This is within the domain of public works, if it relates to the previous questions posed by the Judge President. Public works bears the responsibility to ensure that these courts are properly maintained. And if they are not doing their work, as I said previously, we need to address the challenges as and when they arrive.
Okay, thank you. Another question from you is that the last time we interviewed for Northwest positions, I remember the JP complained about lack of pool of black women coming to act. And I heard you saying to the Premier, one of your plans is to have a lot of black women acting. Where are you going to get the pool? And is there enough pool that you have already earmarked?
Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, yeah, there is a local bar, and there are members at the local bar. And already 2 members, black women, were given an acting opportunity. The invitation was extended to another one, but she was unfortunately not available. The Judge President then went outside to look for women. Now there are women that acted, black women, and currently still act. We sourced them, if I may use that word, from the Pretoria area. Now, there is Advocates for Transformation, and there is other bodies like the General Council of the Bar that can be approached to ask them to make available black women to come and act, and to have a pool from which we can source women, in particular black women, to come and act.
Okay, thank you, CJP. Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner. Judge President Lehori.
DJP, good morning.
Good morning, JP.
I must blame you for causing me to be here, because if you are not here, your Judge President would be sitting here. And I would be in Bombela, perhaps busy with my reserve judgments.
Yes.
A good interpersonal and collegial relationship is actually everything in any leadership position. Would you agree?
I do.
Yeah. And you are a small family of about 7 judges. I take it you interact with each other quite very often, and probably you are holding meetings as colleagues and workshopping each other from time to time. Is that what is happening there?
That is correct. We even meet on a daily basis, except for when some of us are out on circuit court.
But we should also accept, especially when you are in a leadership position, that you need supporting staff, and many of the supporting staffs are appointed in consultation with the head of court in terms of Section 11 of the Superior Courts Act. And for a proper function institution, you need to have good officials. And as a leader, sometimes you need to know your officials, and not only to know them, they need to know that you care about them. What role do you play in actual fact to encourage officials to understand that without them we are nothing?
Well, I do have good interpersonal relationship with the staff. Not only the court manager, the chief registrar, but all the staff members. And that is indeed one of my strong points, to have good interpersonal relationship. We need it in order to work together for the good of the division. And one can, from time to time, especially with the leadership of the support staff, have regular meetings in order to address challenges. Now, if we have challenges, the court manager is called upon, and we have a good working relationship. Let me make an example. When we were busy with the revamping of the High Court, we worked together, because the judge president then asked me to oversee and be part of the team that works with the to revamp the High Court. So we have a good working relationship, JP.
And I take it that caring spirit, to a certain extent, is extended to those who open windows for us in the morning for fresh air, and those who are cleaning the surrounding for us to have the place more accessible and look better.
You have my word on it, JP.
You have always struck me as a modest and humble person, and I envy you, and I wish I was just like you. Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a compliment, JP.
Thank you, Commissioner Moimang.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, DJP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Just two questions from my side. The first one is just building on the issue of traditional courts that was raised by Honorable Commissioner Dodovu. Northwest is unlike how it has the dominance of traditional leaders. It has a traditional house.
Yes.
And the discussion on the passing of the Traditional Courts Bill, he hit a snag at the National Assembly last year because there was an issue around its constitutionality. So while that matter is still being processed, I'm more interested in terms of whether, in terms of your plans, has there been any judge assigned to specifically interact with the traditional courts, so that in preparation for the passing of the Traditional Courts Bill? That's the first one. Now, the second one relates to the method that you dealt with
Nakamudri Mulema district versus the chairperson of the Northwest Provincial Executive Council. I'm more interested in terms of in exercising your discretion, what grounds or what factors did you take into account to refuse to grant the interdict by the Nakamudri Mulema? I think key to my point is that there are three spheres of government: national, provincial, and local, that are separate, distinct, but interdependent. So in a situation where those powers are usurped, the only recourse that the municipality will have, particularly when there's a suggestion or a case to suggest that the act on the part of the provincial government was unconstitutional, was not in line with the values that's enshrined in the Constitution around accountability, oversight, and also the rule of law. What would be your guiding factor in that kind of situation? Thank you, Chief Justice. Thank you, DJP.
Thank you. With regard to the first question, Commissioner, whether a specific judge is assigned, no. The answer is no. There is no specific judge assigned as yet. I plan, if the Act comes into operation, that a specific judge can be assigned. I don't foresee any problem with that. With regard to the second question, with the Nyaka Mudiri Mulema, what happened in that case is the councillors, there was a decision that the councillors, that an administrator be appointed, and the administrator should take over. And the councillors came to court to oppose the appointment of the administrator. Now, that is the crux of the case, whether they had grounds, justifiable grounds, to oppose the appointment of the administrator, which I found they did not. But at the end of the day, it was not only, as they put it, that they will suffer prejudice because they won't earn a salary. What was more important was the delivery of service to the people. And the appointment of the administrator was justified.
So just a follow up on the first one. There was a matter between the Bakata Bakafela and the Communal Property Association around a land that was restituted to the Communal Property Association. I don't know whether does that ring anything to your mind? The reason why I'm raising it is in line with the point that I raised earlier on, to say it is important that attention is paid to the role of traditional courts. Because in that matter, the traditional leaders thought that they have a free right in terms of land that are restituted to the communities because they are traditional leaders.
I speak under correction, but subject to correction. I think that matter is still pending. It's not yet finalized.
No, it was finalized. The Court has pronounced on that matter.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And I'm not aware. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this stage, I would like to go to the commissioners who are attending virtually. Commissioners, is there anyone who wishes to put questions to the candidate?
No question from me, Chief Justice. Julius.
Thank you, Commissioner Malema.
Good morning, Chief Justice. Yes, it's Glynis Bradenbach. I have questions, please.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I must declare up front that I do know DJP Hendricks, and good morning, DJP Hendricks. How are you?
Good morning, Ms. Breitenbach. I'm fine.
Good,
Thank you for asking. And how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I've known,
So I see you ask her how she is.
Yeah. I mean no offense, CJ.
Please go ahead, Commissioner Breitenbach.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Judge Hendricks, you have suggested that to broaden the pool of prospective female judges, provincial workshops for lawyers and legal academics should be held, where attendees would be informed of what the work of a judge entails, and practical experience and guidance could be shared. Have such workshops been held to your knowledge, and if so, how many and when?
No, the workshops haven't been held, but I intend to hold such workshops and invite role players to come and attend and to assist.
Okay, and then my final question is, under what circumstances or what are the factors that you think a judge should consider when deciding whether or not he is conflicted and whether or not to recuse himself in a matter? Thank you.
Yeah, it all depends on whether the judge has, first of all, personal knowledge of the matter beforehand, and whether if he is conflicted, then in such a case, the judge must recuse himself.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner. As Commissioner Shabangu Mdawe joined us virtually, I was told earlier on she was on her way.
Morning, CJ. I'm here. I think I'll ask my question after Commissioner Barnett.
Okay. Commissioner Barnett, why do I think you had indicated you had no question?
In fact, my hand has been up, Chief Justice.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. DJP, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Yes, I'd like to ask you, let me make a statement. Leadership is to create a inspiring vision of the future, to motivate and inspire people to engage with that vision. So my first question is to ask you to inspire the Commission. I mean, bearing in mind Rustenburg, the problems have been mentioned there about the court and the challenges you've spent. So I'd ask you to inspire the JSC that in future under your leadership, Northwest justice will shine. That's the first question, please.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. Once again, I need to refer to the comment that were made. First of all, by the GCB with regard to my skills and ability, my leadership qualities, but also my colleagues. And I think that perhaps you were furnished with a copy of what was written by my colleagues. And I do have the support, and they even refer to my leadership. That being the case, it means that there is unity in our division. And with unity and collegiality, working together, we can achieve much more. I visualize a situation where, as a team, we work together to enhance the access to justice and the speedy resolution of disputes, and that we as a division will grow and will deliver justice to all our people.
Thank you. And then also on the digitization and just the use of modernization technology, you mentioned two specific areas or challenges. The one is that, or one thing that you said you could do monthly visits, or at least per term, you could do a visit to the various jurisdictions. And I just want to ask, it's two components to the question. So first, just as far as the court visits are concerned, do you think there's a role to play for, keeping virtual contact as well? So having maybe more frequent discussions with local courts or personnel at the local courts or presiding officers, etc., by way of the virtual platform, other than just once a term? And then secondly, as far as the storage problems are concerned, and you mentioned that you've actually taken some initiative as far as setting in place the arrangements with the archives. But once again, is digitizing the storage process not a possible answer for the future? I mean, case lines will sort out future, but we're talking now about the storage of the historical documents. Thank you.
The answer is definitely yes, Commissioner. Virtual, we can have more often meetings and discuss any challenges that may arise, and we can do it more often. The same applies to the digital storage and the modernization of the courts. If we go digital with this case line, we will definitely have a positive outcome. And that may happen sooner than what we anticipate.
But the digitizing of documents that are already existing, pre-case lines, there is a possibility to perhaps scan and store documents on that basis. It makes them easier accessible as well to practitioners or litigants and so on.
That can happen. It is not impossible. It's though it may well be a tedious exercise and it may well be expensive, but it can happen. It's possible.
Thank you very much. And in closing, I just want to say that I, for one, I'm glad to hear that the remains in the Nkuna matter were found, in the sense that, I was wondering whether you ever had any doubts during that trial before doing a very well-written judgment on and the finding there. But that's not a question, it's just a comment. Thank you.
If I may react.
Yes, you may.
I also received calls from people who ask me, what will happen if she appears, if she resurfaces? And I was so convinced that having regard to the circumstances, surrounding circumstances, that she was no longer with us. She was no longer alive.
I must say, at the end of your judgment, I was convinced as well. So,
thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Shabangu Mdawe.
Thank you, CJ. Good morning, DJP.
Good morning.
DJP, we are applying for a leadership position, and during the February interviews, it transpired that the judiciary does not have harassment police, sexual harassment police. I'm wondering if your division does have something to deal with sexual harassment. If not, how are you intending to deal with this problem?
Thank you, Commissioner. Sexual harassment, there must be a policy in place as far as sexual harassment is concerned. But we don't even need to have a policy in place as such. That is a criminal complaint at the end of the day. But if there is sexual harassment brought to my attention, I will definitely deal with it. I will attend to it and deal decisively with it. There is no room for sexual harassment in a workplace, especially in the judiciary itself.
Have you perhaps ever come across to such complaint in your division?
No, fortunately not.
Okay, thank you. My second question, DJP, I don't get you clear regarding the creation of the pool of women where you will get maybe acting judges. When you responded to Commissioner Breitenbach regarding the workshop that you planned, you said it hasn't it hasn't taken place, and you did not indicate as to how soon are you intending to have it. And you also mentioned that you are mentoring acting judges. My question to you is, do you perhaps have any program that you are participating where you are mentoring young women who are intending to enter judiciary, who are not yet in the judiciary?
There is a work in progress with regard to the universities, the Northwest University, where the mentoring and especially of young students, women students, are happening. One of my colleagues is involved there, and I intend also to participate. I don't have a problem to convene a workshop as soon as possible in order to groom and to help with the mentoring of especially black women. There is a number of bodies out there that can be approached to make members available for such a workshop. And if I am appointed, I will definitely prioritize such a conference.
Thank you, DJP, and thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lucas.
Chief Justice, I'm terribly sorry, it's Glennis Breitenbach. May I have a follow-up on that question, please?
You wish to do a follow-up question?
Please, on the...
Okay, all right. Please go ahead.
Thank you. DJP Hendricks, you say you have no problem in arranging this workshop as quickly as possible. The first time you discussed this issue was at your interview in 2017. Could you be a little more specific about precisely when they're going to take place?
I think the question relates to after my appointment as a judge president.
Well, I understand the question to be, and Commissioner Breitenbach will tell me if I misunderstood her question. It seems that there was a discussion in 2017, and it seems to be implied that at that stage, the contemplation may have been that the workshop was going to happen, and she seems to be saying, well, it's taken long, so when is it going to happen if it has taken so long? But my understanding may be wrong.
Yeah.
No, you're perfectly correct. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Yes. I don't foresee any difficulty in having this conference constituted, Commissioner. It is the prerogative of the judge president still to have such, to convene such a conference. And I will definitely take it up with the judge president. And I thought that you want to know when I become the judge president.
No, that's what part of what she wanted to know. I think the follow-up was simply that it hasn't taken place over the time.
Yes.
But obviously, you were not judge president. But
yes.
The discussion, what she said, seemed to imply that based on that discussion in 2017, she expected that it would have happened. But I guess you have explained.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, CJ.
Okay, Commissioner Breitenbach, are you covered?
Yes, thank you, Chief Justice.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lucas?
Thank you, Chief Justice. I've been covered in many of the issues, about 2-3 that I wanted to ask, but there is one that is outstanding. Good morning, TGP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
I've been deployed to Northwest in another capacity, and I've noticed that Northwest is a very vast province.
Yes.
Might wish to raise your voice a little bit, Commissioner.
So, what I'm saying is that I've noticed that Northwest is a very vast province, particularly since the time that I've been working there.
That is correct.
So I was just interested because the region that I am deployed to is Ruth Sekgomotse Mempate.
Yes.
And it's stretching from Kagisano Molopo in the almost southwest up to Lake Watimana.
Yes.
That is totally more to the east. I was just wondering, with regards to court services, how are, particularly because we only have Vryburg as a seat, and I don't know how you are stretching yourself across that area. So I was just interested to know how, in the circumstances that is prevailing, you are making sure that all people, particularly the rural people, have access to court services. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, the main seat of the district court for that area is Vryburg, and that serves that area. There can be in future, and that may well be one of the plans, to have periodical courts in the more far-flung areas. That will help and assist with access to justice. But on the point that I made earlier, you know, now that we are almost used to, after this pandemic, to do things virtually, it may well be of assistance that we can have a place identified where the litigants can go to and connect virtually and be assisted and have access to justice, rather than to travel long distances to where the seat of the court is. That possibility can be explored. There is also the possibility that in some of the areas there are what you call the word escaped me now, but there may be a possibility to create a place where we can do it virtually.
Yeah, Ganyesa, for instance,
Yeah.
you've got almost 20,000 inhabitants in that specific area, but then you also have Bray.
Yes.
That is almost more than, I think, 80 or more than 100 kilos from Ganyesa. It's exactly the reason why I'm bringing it to your attention if you haven't yet thought about it, but there is definitely a potential, but there is also a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlemmer.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning.
Good morning.
DJP.
Good morning,
I
Commissioner.
would just like to know from you, it seems like some of the things that you said indicates that there are budgetary challenges as well.
Yes.
To what extent do you think that the Superior Courts Act, specifically section, I think it's 54, let me just double check, section 54, can assist you in looking into the budgetary challenges and lobbying, if I can use that word, the CJ and the Minister in doing something about it?
Yeah, I think when faced with all these challenges, there are budgetary constraints. You are perfectly correct, Commissioner. And to approach the Minister to assist, and also the CJ, to make funds available in order to enhance access to justice.
In general, financial accountability is kind of also part of the role of the JP in a division. So to what extent are you planning to look at where the problems are and to determine what sums of money you would need so that you have something to talk to the CJ about?
There is the regional office that is responsible for the support that is lent to the judiciary. And there is a budget. I'm aware that there is a budget. And if need be, there can be submissions made in order to increase it.
Thank you, sir. I do think that the Superior Courts Act makes it more possible nowadays for the leadership of the courts through the Office of the Chief Justice to do something about the budgets. So I would really urge you to make sure that you do.
Yes, I will endeavor to do so, especially in this trying economic times that we are experiencing in the country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Tsepa.
Thank you, Chief Justice. I think I should listen to Commissioner Matolo Lepu, and tomorrow I'm going to wear a bright red dress, Chief Justice, so you can see me.
Well, she's not wearing the white. She promised to wear it.
Good morning, DJP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
DJP, I have a follow-up in respect of a question that was asked by Commissioner Shabangumdawe, but then I have another question. And it relates to, my follow-up relates to your answer on sexual harassment policy. You said something that concerned me a bit, that we don't need a sexual harassment policy, if I did not understand you. And I just wanted us to be clear, because a sexual harassment policy is not just, it's also for possible victims to know how they deal with sexual harassment cases when they have experienced them. And that part of the problem with not having them may be why you don't receive complaints, because people don't know how to deal with them. I just wanted us to be, if I misunderstood you, for you to clarify that.
Let me be emphatic. I said you don't need to have such a policy in order to do something about it. I did not say that such a policy is not necessary. It is indeed necessary. But it is, the sexual harassment, in my view, is of such a serious nature that it should be followed up, and something need to be done about it.
Thank you, DJP. I just want us to be clear that it is, we do need it.
Yes.
So that a commitment on your part, were you to be appointed, that in your division, or at least in the Northwest, we will have a policy of that nature. I think that's
definitely, definitely, you can rest assured.
Thank you. Thank you, DJP. My question relates also to the issue of acting appointments, and in your interview in 2019 for the position as DJP, and you've repeated here that it is a prerogative of the JP how to appoint acting judges. During the interview process of the Chief Justice, we received feedback from law bodies, and one of the concerns they raised with appointment of acting judges was transparency of the process, and in some instances, criteria. And I just wanted to find out from you what your view is on that, and whether the process that is used in the Northwest, whether it's a transparent process, and whether there is a criteria, or whether you think the judiciary as a whole should actually have a more transparent process and a transparent criteria in respect of appointment of acting judges, because we create a pool of judges from this process. Thank you, Deputy Judge President.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes. Most definitely, there must be criteria and for the appointment. However, you know, much depends on the experience and the exposure of some of the aspirant acting judges. You may find that the briefing pattern is still a problem, and some of the counsel are not yet briefed, you know, don't get briefs, and doesn't appear quite often in your court, so that you can assess and even invite such a person to come and act. And it creates a challenge at the end of the day, not because of the making of the person, but because of the circumstances. So people need to be exposed to more work of substance. And in that regard, it will enhance even the appointment of specific people to the bench in specific fields of law.
Thank you, DJP. For me, I take the point you're raising, but if we have transparent processes and transparent criteria, it helps you to deal with some of the underlying issues that you're raising, which are genuine issues. But thank you for your response, and hopefully that process will start being underway. This process of acting judges, in my view, doesn't require you to be appointed as a JP. You are already in a leadership position as a DJP and could be assisting whoever the JP is in doing this, if you agree with it, I would imagine.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you,
DJP. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Baloyi.
Thank you, CJ. My questions have been taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Pillay.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, DJP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
DJP, just to tag on to a question that was put to you by Commissioner Tsepe about transparent processes in the appointment of acting judges. I think the one issue you haven't dealt with in response to the complaint by Mr. Monchiwa is around the question of whether or not there's, in a sense, patronage and favoritism in how acting judges are selected, firstly, and that there's lack of opportunity to people at the Mahikeng bar and local attorneys in terms of being selected for acting appointments.
Commissioner, no, that is not correct. I pointed out earlier that three of the local bar people, women, were invited to come and act. 2 of them being black female persons. So that is not correct. And with regard to the transparency, there should be transparency in the appointment of acting judges. But the criteria need to be looked at. You need to look at the person that are to apply for the position and the exposure. It's not easy to get a person to come and act when that person doesn't have the necessary experience and exposure, or are very, very recently, have taken chambers. To call such a person and expose such a person to the bench without the necessary experience. We need to have a criteria in place and invite people that had the necessary exposure and experience to come and act.
And then in your previous interview, one of the specific issues you mentioned is that you're actively involved in the mentoring of acting judges, and specifically women acting judges.
Yes.
Can I just understand, how does that mentoring take place? What is it that you're doing specifically in order to mentor aspiring acting judges?
Yeah. What happens is it's more on a personal basis, where the judge will be allocated a matter. He or she will write a judgment. I will discuss the judgment. We will go through the judgment, the content thereof. And if there is a contentious issue, to debate with the judge, the contentious issue, without necessarily dictating what the judgment should look like. And those judgments are kept so that at the end of the day, the acting judge can see the progress that he or she has made from the inception up until the end of acting. It's more on a personal basis. It's not a question of lecturing, but it's a question of mentoring the acting judge concerned.
So that relates to once an acting judge has been identified and
Yes.
appointed, that you assist in how he or she performs their duties.
Yes.
And in terms of identifying suitable people, either from the ranks of the bar or the local attorneys, do you envisage any programs to mentor potential acting judges?
I think there must be a program developed but it will be parallel to what is already with Sajay, because Sajay has the aspirant judges training course, where people that are identified are invited to attend in order for them to be trained. Now, after they have been identified, then they are given an acting stint, and that is where the mentoring takes place. So it's not necessary to have a parallel system with what Sajay is in actual fact doing.
And then lastly, just like Commissioner Tsepe, I was a bit alarmed at your answer to the question about whether or not there are any complaints of sexual harassment flowing through. And your response was fortunately not.
Yeah.
I think that's a concerning response, because it might well be that because there is no firm policy in place, that the complaints are not finding its way through. But more importantly, from your answer, I put together that you're, in a sense, acting as the recipient or the potential recipient of sexual harassment complaints.
Because of my interpersonal relationship with not only my colleagues, but also the support staff, if it happened, I would have known. There are none to my knowledge. Not that I am against a policy that need to be implemented.
Yeah. But I think, DJP, what would be more important is that if you see yourself playing that role of the let's call it the recipient of potential complaints, that you undergo the necessary training in order to play that role, because it's quite a sensitive role, particularly
Yes.
in a structured environment like a court.
Yes.
Where it's not easy for women to come forward with potential complaints. That the person who is identified as the core person to whom you would go to if you have a complaint, that person is properly trained in order to play that role.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Follow
there
up,
are no
Justice?
further. Oh.
Sorry, a follow-up, Justice?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me go to Commissioner Nochesi before I go to, I think there's somebody else on the attending virtual who wants to say something. Yes.
Sorry, Chief Justice, it's a follow-up on what has just been said now. Could I perhaps go before Commissioner Nochesi?
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Thank you, JP. If there would be to be a complainant that wanted to lodge a complaint against yourself, who would they go to?
Yeah. At the present moment, that person would go to the judge president or any other judge.
Thank you very much. Now, I think I just want to underline the problem with just referring to yourself, and then maybe connected to that, is it then not perhaps a good idea to have someone else in place to fulfill that role in terms of the sexual harassment policy?
It is possible, yes, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. Commissioner Nochesi.
Thank you, Jay. DJP, two quick questions.
Yes.
They arise from the questions relating to acting appointments.
Yeah.
What is your view about this perceived regionalization of courts. Let me explain, make it simple.
Yes.
A tendency or a practice has been developed that for the Northwest, you will appoint acting judges in Northwest. For Free State, you appoint people from Free State. For all these divisions, and I call it regionalization, which is a step back from what we have achieved as a country.
Yeah.
What is your view on that?
No, I don't support it, because you inevitably find yourself in a situation where you can't just source from this your region, if I may call it that. And that is why it happened in the past that we even went as far as Gauteng to ask possible candidates and to identify suitable candidates to come and act. So it cannot be only regionally bound. What if you don't find a suitable person? Yeah. Then you will be hamstrung. But in the same breath, look at your local people and develop them. I said earlier, much depends on the exposure that such a person had in the past and how frequent they appear. It may well be that council does not get enough briefs to appear very regularly before you in order for you to invite such a person or make an informed decision about that person's capability.
I'm asking you this because
Yeah.
we have 9 provincial divisions that have various seats.
Yes.
If there was commitment on this aspect, particularly with regard to appointment of women judges, there's nothing to stop you to phone Judge President in the Eastern Cape. Do you have, because there are people appearing in that court,
Yes.
in the Western, but even yourself, throughout as I listen, the only court to keep on referring us to is what Pretoria, which is just next to you. This is the regionalization that I'm talking about.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't understand the question in that context, Commissioner. But there is nothing that stops a judge president from calling any other colleague and to identify a person. I would not have a problem to get somebody to come and act from any part of the country.
Yeah. Look, I just, because of time, we'll debate this one day.
Yeah.
The point I want to make to you is, if you have a plan, or a judge's president were committed.
Come again?
If you had a plan,
yes,
or judge's president were committed,
yeah,
in addressing the specific issue of bringing more women to the bench or more black candidates to the bench, that should not have a problem.
No.
I will make an example for you. Judge Ponan, he acted in Mthatha.
Yeah.
Judge Theron, all those. But in current years, it's very rare, even myself, to come to act your division because you want people from the Western, from the Northwest, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Let me just respond. You know, we did not only have people in a specific region that are targeted. We have had one of the acting judges from the Northern Cape who is a female. She came and acted in our division. So I don't think that is quite correct, Commissioner. That regionalization of your, it's not in the Northwest.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi.
Thank you, CJ. Perhaps it's, good morning, DJP.
Good morning, good morning.
Yes, it's more a follow-up on this conversation about the transparency
Yes.
of identifying or finding acting judges. And perhaps it's just to put to you a possibility that you might want to consider,
Okay.
and which I've seen practiced in at least our division, where the DJP at certain intervals sends out correspondence to the...
What is that?
Is Honorable Dennis Stokes.
Please. Okay, Commissioner Baloyi, continue.
Yes. What I was putting to you that
Yes.
perhaps you might want to consider
Yes.
is what happens, for example, in my division, and I suspect other divisions are doing that,
Yes.
is that the JP sends out a request to the various bodies, professional
Yes.
bodies, and indicates periods for which he requires acting judges, but also it has I call it age, number of years at the bar, and whether bar, attorney's profession, and other areas, academia. So perhaps you might want to consider that, because I know from experience that
Yes.
we do have people from Johannesburg who act in the Northwest
Yes.
from time to time. And the question that other colleagues have asked is, how do I get to act in the Northwest? Because I know so-and-so is always acting in that division. So I think if you opened yourself up to these wide invitations, and perhaps it also is a way of addressing Commissioner Nojes's valid issue that he raises, that if you spread this, then you will get better responses, and perhaps also then address your problem that in the Northwest you don't have people who have the necessary years and the necessary experience, because you will have a wider reach with your invitation to come and act. That's the one. The second is more a question on the same issue. How much, if you do you draw from the pool of magistrates? Because other divisions do that.
Yeah.
Do you use that as a source?
Yes.
Thank you, CJ.
First of all, as far as the first one is concerned, I take note of what you said, Commissioner. As far as the question with regard to the magistrate is concerned, yes, we do draw from the pool of magistrates. There are 3 of the permanent judges now that are appointed in the Northwest were magistrates before. 1 from a district court and 2 from the regional court. So yes, we do draw from all different sectors of legally trained persons.
DJP,
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
CJ, may I make a follow-up on this issue?
Yes, JP.
Because it would seem there is a concern about criteria and invitation.
Yes, JP.
And I should think JP Lohodi can confirm that a criterion is there.
Yes.
It was agreed upon by the heads of court as to who should be appointed. And secondly, with regard to sourcing acting judges from outside the Northwest, we do get judges acting from there. But there's a problem. You cannot compare us with Gauteng. Most judges who act in Gauteng do that pro bono. Now, if I were to invite someone to come to Mafikeng for free, they won't come, and that is why they are not coming. And Gauteng takes them for a short period, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. We ask them to come and act maybe for a term or so. No one will come there for free. And the challenge with women judges, in most cases, they will say, leaving your family. For instance, even yesterday, one said, no, I can't come. My husband, I have a 9-year-old child. You know, things like that. There are quite a number of problems with judges who come from outside. Maybe the DJP may not be aware of that, or of some of them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, maybe I can add this. I also don't understand there to be any rigid decision or policy in any division not to appoint acting judges from outside the divisions or the provinces. But I do know that generally the JP would, among other things, consider the questions of costs if you are looking at somebody who is outside of the province, because normally that person would need accommodation, there would be S&T. So I don't think there is a rigid no, but that is something that I think is sometimes taken into account. But I think there are cases where acting judges are secured from outside the program. I know that, for example, I think Shlope JP at some stage shared with me an arrangement where he, if I'm not mistaken, secured somebody from outside the Western Cape, I think from KwaZulu-Natal, on the understanding that that person would not claim S&T or something like that. So I just mentioned that I'm aware that is sometimes taken into account. Okay, I think we have come to the end of this interview. Thank you very much, DJP. Have you got one or two points that you want to emphasize to the commissioners to take into account when they consider your candidature before you leave?
Thank you, CJ. No, I'm covered. I think what needed to be said was said and was written, and I want to thank you as Chief Justice and also the commissioners for the opportunity inviting me to this interview and to give me the opportunity to attend. I thank you.
Thank you very much, TJP. You are now excused.
Thank you.